Hello there, it's Alana Tuckey. I'm back to keep helping you with your first project for Math 133. This time we're going to go over how to find these statistics with Excel, because you're supposed to do everything with Excel, no calculators allowed. All right, so it's going to ask us here to find all sorts of things like the mean, the median, the count, variance, and so on. So I'm going to show you with a data set. Now, I'm not going to show you with this data set because somebody's going to be given 1965. So I made up another data set. I have the heights of various cartoon characters in inches. Exciting, huh? Okay, so let's see here. Let me make it bigger so you can see. All right, now one thing to keep in mind is that when you're going to be doing this project, you're going to have it so your instructor can see everything that you're doing. So you want to kind of make it so that it's obvious and clear what you're doing. So you might want to label it part 2 or part 3, right? What was it? GDP. Let me read out. It said GDP statistics. Okay. GDP statistics. Okay. So then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that's how many things we were told to calculate. Yep. And then, so let me mean, median, count, variance. Let me type these up. Hold on one second. Okay. Now, in case you're wondering, a couple things. I made these pieces bold by just hitting or highlighting up there and hitting Control B or hitting right here. And if you want to make them like a different color or something, you can do that just to make it kind of clearer. You can do the same thing with your data. So you just hit it up here, Control B, and you can make them gray or you can make it yellow or whatever. I mean, if you just want to make it kind of more obvious what's going on. And I made it bigger by doing, you can do that one of two ways. Like if it's really small print for you and you can't read very well, you can kind of zoom like that. That's using the slider bar in the bottom right corner. See that? So I'm at 143% zoom right now. If you just hit Control, hold down the Control button and scroll with your mouse button, it'll do the same thing. Or you can just make the font bigger. Right now I'm at 10-point font, which is pretty small. So if you wanted to highlight and make it 12-point font, so be it. It's just going to make it so that that width of that bar isn't useful to you anymore. But you know, you might not care. So up to you. You don't have to leave it at 10-point if you don't want to. Okay. All right. So back to my fake data set. Oops. Come back. There they are. Okay, so I'm going to find the mean, the median, the standard deviation, and so on. Oops, you probably want to know how I just did that. Okay, so up here where I can see that standard deviation, class width, those words are too long. So if I let my mouse hover between the F and the G, and I double click, right, so it was that double-sided arrow again, and then I double click, it makes it wide enough. All right, so then if you want to make these bigger fonts or whatever, you can. This part of the issue is that I have such a large font size over here. So since I have size 18 font over there, I can use size 18 font over here. Then I'll still have to double click and make it big enough. So that's fine. All right, now how to find the mean. That's equals average, parentheses, and then you have to tell it the cells where all your data is. So my cells are B2 to B11, right? So you can either type B2, column B, number 2, to column B, number 11, sort of like Battleship, or you can use your mouse and kind of click, and here, I let my mouse, I click on the cell B2, and then I keep my mouse button down on the left, and I drag down. And then I can see that it's telling me B2 to B11. I can see the box right there is big enough to encompass all my data. Your data set, of course, is much larger than that, so you're going to have to scroll down quite a bit, or you can kind of look at it and say, oh, okay, my bottom one's B11, my top one's B2, so I can just type B2 colon B11. All right, now median is really easy. Equals median, parentheses, B2 colon B11, because I know that's where my data is. Count. Count is how many of them there are, which is equals count colon, or parentheses, excuse me, B2 colon B11 in this case. And again, it'll be different cells for everything. So it might be B2 to B200 or B2 to B55 or whatever. Now variance. This one you want to be careful with because there's two types of variance. So what you want to think to yourself is this data a sample or is this data a population? So I'm going to teach you how to find both. So let me teach you how to find population variance. And let me teach you how to find population standard deviation. And then I'm going to go over here and teach you how to find the other ones. Sample variance, sample standard deviation. And then you'll choose whichever one's appropriate for your problem. All right, so population variance is equal to VAR now. Okay, so there's these options to choose from. The new Excel has this .p thing. So you say var.p b2 colon b oops colon b11. Fine. The old, if you're working from an old Excel, like 2000, I want to say Excel 2003, you go VARP. That's the old system, B2 colon B11. It'll get you the same number, right? All right, and then I don't know if you were seeing it, but sample variance is right there. So you go variance is VAR in the old system, B2 colon B11. Or the new system is VAR.S. So if you have that option, then choose that one because that's more correct. But honestly, it doesn't make any difference because they're the same thing. Okay, it's just that the old system doesn't have the .S and the .P ones available to you. Oops, I don't want this to be so huge. That's ginormous. Okay, same thing is going to happen with standard deviation. So it's equal STDEV, and you can see .P would be the new system for population. B2 colon B11. See, it's 9.728. And then the old system is STDEVP, right there, the one for population, right? And then you'd say, yep, that one, B2 colon B11, or whatever your data is. I'll do .P B2 colon B11. And then sample, the S is equal to STDEV, old system, right there, STDEV, or STDV.S. They're the same thing. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, right? Okay, so the old Excel doesn't have the .S and the .P available. That's a better system, of course, because it keeps you more on track for what you're doing. All right, now one of these is required for your problems, so you'll have to go figure that out. Now the minimum, that's equal to minimum of, min, M-I-N. There's the function, M-I-N, and then again put in your data, B2, B11, B2, whatever on your problem. Max is equal to max. Yes, it's really that simple, right? Range. Okay, well the range, remember, is your max minus your min, so you're going to want to do this all at once. So equals, you can do this one of two ways. You can say max B2 colon B11, close your parentheses, minus min B2 to B11, or whatever your data range is. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to take equals this cell that I just figured out the max in, which is G9, take away this cell, which is where I figured out the min in, which is G8. Enter. And there you go. Okay, so that's all of that. All right, and then we want to find the class width. Now, I'm not going to do 20 classes on this one because that's not useful for me, but I'm going to say 5 classes, say, just for the sake of it. But you can do however many classes is required for your problem. But I'm going to do 5 because that's more appropriate for this very small data set. So the way to find the class width, if you'll recall from chapter 2, is to take your range, which we figured out right here is 34, and divide it by the number of classes you want. Okay, 6.8 is fine, but you have to round up. So I would round up, say, to 7. There we go. All right, we are all good with that. That's how to find everything that you need for part 3. I think. Let's double check. All right, so mean, median, count, variance, standard deviation. Yep, we're all good. Okay, so with that, I will leave you to your own devices for making your graphs and making your tables, other than to say that all of this was already covered in the lectures for chapter 2. So if you go to 2.2 and 2.3, problems like these were done very similarly to these. Okay. So you will have to create your tables. That's what this one is. This is making the table, finding the relative frequencies, all that good stuff. Don't worry about using Excel to find the frequencies. That you can just do by hand because it's just counting. But the relative frequencies, you should use Excel to find. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'd say that's the part in this particular one that really needs to be done with Excel. The other ones, you can use Excel. I use Excel to find these two. But if you don't and you do it more by hand, that's not the end of the world. But definitely your relative frequency should be found with Excel. And then your GDP graphs, those definitely need to be done with Excel. Make sure that you label them, right, that they are well labeled and organized, right? What would be the smart thing to do would be to make it so that you've got your graphs kind of down here. Let me just put some in, hold on. Stuff like this, okay? So you'll have like your answers to part 3 right here, and then you'll scroll down, you'll have a table in here, that'll be part 4, and you'll label it. So you'll say, you know, part 4 right here, and then GDP distribution. Okay, then you'll have your table and you'll label everything with boundaries and midpoints and all that good stuff. And then down here you'll have your graphs. And of course this is a terrible graph. You'll have to do some major work here to add labels, and which is up here. You know, titles, labels, all sorts of good stuff. Right? So you're going to want to have labels on the left, or you're going to want to have labels below. You're going to want to have a chart title up there. So you're going to have one there, another one next to it, and then some more down here. Some are line graphs, some are bar charts, you know, or histograms, whatever. And then further down, you're going to want your analysis piece. And then for your analysis piece, which needs to be down here, let me go back. So after you've done your GDP graphs, which will be kind of obvious, your GDP distributions, which you'll kind of label, and then you'll have a big table in there with some columns and stuff. And then I don't know if you saw how I was making that obvious. Oops, come back. But I kind of I highlighted wherever the table is that you make. You know, it'll have 20 rows or whatever in it. You'll go up here and pick all borders or something like that. And you can make it so the top part is gray, and you know, where it says midpoints and frequency and junk like that. Okay. If you don't like it over here, you can kind of nudge it over to the left. You know, it's not going to be the end of the world. So, and then you'll have your graphs right there. And then down here, you're going to want part 6, which is GDP analysis. Now it's up to you how you're going to do this. So you're either going to type in cells, you know, like I did. Oops, yep, going there. Right. So you have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can type, you know, number 1, number 2, just like before, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc., and you type, you know, blah, 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 right? Etc., etc., etc. It'll go across. It'll be, you know, yucky, but you can do it. So that's one way to do it. Or you can go to Insert, and where is it at? Oh, over here, text box. So I can insert a huge text box and say part 6, GDP analysis. And then it really works sort of like Microsoft Word in here. You know, number 1, blah, blah, blah. Number 2, blah, 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 right? And you know, if you write blah, 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 your instructor will not give you points. And then you can, you know, go all the way down to 16. If you run out of space, you can just kind of drag it and make it bigger. So it becomes more like a sheet of paper. So whichever way you choose to do it, the only thing is I think there's one thing that has to be calculated, the z-score. Okay, so to find a z-score, I'll do that for Foghorn Leghorn. So come back. So suppose I want to find a z-score for Foghorn Leghorn. Here he is right here. So if I want his z-score, I can say, okay, I'll just do the calculation. And by the way, you can just move this text box over, not the end of the world. So I can say z-score wherever you need to do it. You know, I don't know which problem it was, but wherever that problem shows up, then you can type equals. And there's 2 ways you can do this, but I'll just teach you the fast way, which is your formula. So you take Foghorn Leghorn score, so parentheses, Foghorn Leghorn, which is cell B4, minus the mean, which was 42.6, which is in cell G3, close your parentheses, divided by your standard deviation, whichever one's the appropriate one, and then there you go. So that's how you can find the z-score, with Excel. And then you can just go type it in here. You know, oh, it was 1.99. Of course, it won't be for Foghorn Leghorn. It's, I think, for the US. You'll have to go find the US in your data set. All right, I think we're mostly done. Don't forget to save. And I'll see you back here for the second task, which is the mortality task. See you then.